Okay, so welcome to the PSI Basic Seminar presentation. My name is Reshma Block. I want to thank you all for joining me today. I was introduced to the PSI Basic Seminar approximately 4.5 years ago, in August of 2006, by the CEO of the company I had just joined. I had joined that company. It was a direct sales company focused on a biopharmaceutical product, and I was brought on board to help start that company up as a chief of operations. I currently now own my own technology consulting and business strategy company based out of Southern California, and so my background is really a technical executive with a business approach or an MBA focused on entrepreneurialism. So I love helping small and medium businesses either improve their operations to make them much more effective to drive bigger, better revenues, or to help new companies get off the ground and running. I am not a PSI Seminars employee. As I mentioned, I am just a graduate of the basic course that I took in 2006. I'm also a wife, mother, and business owner. I've been happily married to my best friend of 11 years who's also taken the basic course with me. And we've both adopted a 2-year-old. Actually, she's now 3 years old, over a year ago. What's in it for me to be able to do this presentation, since I'm not a PSI Seminars employee, is simply to pay it forward. I strongly believe that donating my time has long-term benefits, and the value that both my husband and I have received out of the basic seminar, which is a personal growth process that we've been going through, has been so incredibly valuable in all areas of our life that we feel strongly in just sharing it with whoever's interested in hearing more about it. So what I want to talk about a little bit is about PSI Seminars in general. So PSI Seminars is spelled PSI Seminars. It was founded over 35 years ago, actually going on 37, 38 years. It is the oldest personal development company in the United States. It actually has over 600,000 graduates, and they're focused on breakthrough educational seminars. The basic seminars are actually held monthly in all cities all over the U.S. So the key word here is educational seminars. This is not a therapeutic type environment. It's not a psychological type environment. These are educational courses that the basic seminar or that PSI Seminars has put together to be able to educate people on the concepts of personal growth. So what is the basic specifically? Well, the basic is a classroom type environment with discussions and exercises. It is focused on providing techniques that can be applied to both your personal and professional life. So during the course of the seminar, which is a 3-day event in Orange County, in other cities it's a 4-day event, you will experience and participate in 30-some-odd exercises that will hopefully help you discover some of the thoughts and decisions that you make in all areas of your life, and ultimately glean some techniques from them to help you potentially, get your goals faster and accomplish bigger and better things. It's an educational course only. It's not a club. It's not network marketing. It's not anything of that nature. You don't pay a membership fee or anything like that. Because it's educational, the course is really focusing on challenging yourself. There's no judgment around whether the growth that you experience, whether the discoveries that you make in any of these courses are good or bad or right or wrong. It doesn't have anything to do with what your belief system is. It has everything to do with just what your thought processes are that have either helped generate success in areas of your life, or that have perhaps prohibited generating success in areas of your life. And so the focus is really both professional and personal. In fact, I actually recommend the basic course to my business partners, my clients, as well as my friends and family. The people that I will take on as clients, if I'm going to be coaching them, all have to have the basic seminar, education process before I can even consider coaching them, and that's just kind of how I run my business. I don't get anything out of them going. However, because of just how good PSI Seminars is in packaging these educational concepts into their 3-day format, it helps really accelerate the coaching process. And so the great thing about the basic is that it really draws out and not shoves in. So you're sitting in a classroom type environment, and there's not a teacher or a facilitator that's lecturing to you, telling you what you should believe and how you should think or what you should be doing in life. It really, based on the exercises, is focused on drawing out of you what's working and what's not working, because the concept behind the basic is that all of us already have all of the tickets that we need. In fact, all of the greatness already resides in us. It's really time to look at how do we dust that off, how do we get more comfortable in some areas that we are not comfortable in to potentially get our goals and dreams. So the Basic Seminar, as I mentioned, is a 3-day course. In some cities, it is 2 nights and 2 days. In the 3-day format in Orange County, the course is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All 3 days starts at 10 o'clock and ends at 8 p.m. In other cities where the Basic Seminar is held, and it's held in over a dozen cities around the country and Canada, if it's a 4-day format, it's a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday type course. Either way, what you're focusing on during the period of the seminar is completing those 30-some-odd exercises, looking at your thinking around all areas of your life. So, for instance, on Friday night, you'll be looking at, or during Friday, you'll be looking at, in the 3-day format, stress management techniques, communication techniques, rest and relaxation techniques. So you're really focused on both your physical side of you and the emotional side of you. So let me give you kind of an example of what could happen on Friday, for instance, or Thursday if you're doing the 4-day class. One of the exercises that you'll participate in, and this one stood out for me pretty significantly, is an exercise where you're really looking at the different personality types in your life. So your personality type, your most dominant trait, and personality types of other individuals. And what the course is focused on doing is understanding how do you think and what thought processes have been providing and helping your success and then hindering your success. So, for instance, picture one of these exercises where the facilitator splits up the entire room into 4 different quadrants. It's called the personality matrix. And in one corner you have what's known as the controller personality. In the other adjacent corner you have a group of people sitting in the analyst quadrant, and then opposite of them you have a group of folks sitting in the supporter quadrant, and then finally the other remaining folks sitting in the promoter quadrant. Now, when my husband and I did this, we both had attained our MBAs. We were both successful people, and we both had done various personality assessments, leadership classes, read a bunch of books, et cetera, et cetera. However, none of those formats, if you will, the books, the leadership classes and whatnot, were experientially based. So the content, as much as we knew it, we didn't know how to apply it, if that makes sense. So as we're sitting around in this matrix, I'm stuck right smack in the middle of the controller quadrant. I know that's kind of hard to believe. However, that's where I was. And my husband, actually, who is the programmer with a financial analyst background, sat in the analyst quadrant. Now, up until this point, we'd been married for 5 years. Most people would consider our marriage pretty successful. However, I had chosen to start that company with the CEO who introduced me to the Basic in Arizona, which took me away from home in Orange County 90% of the time. I was actually traveling 4 or 5 days out of the week. And I had thought everything was okay, yet I knew that me and my husband probably had some pretty explosive fights and arguments, over the course of our marriage, to the point where, once every year at least we would threaten each other with divorce. And that was just kind of the nature of our relationship. Every other point in time, everything was quote-unquote great. However, this exercise really brought to light what was causing some of our challenges, because what I had realized through the course of the Basic is I had chosen to take a job that took me away from my husband. We hadn't adopted our daughter yet. He wanted to have children. I didn't want to have children. And we weren't communicating as effectively as we once were. And so essentially I had decided subconsciously to go do something else that would take me away. So I wouldn't have to deal with that. And so as we're doing this exercise, not only did I discover that the challenges we'd had around our communications is because as a controller, I was very quick and specific on the decisions that I make, and as an analyst, my husband, who's the brochure shopper, needed more data. And so the source of our frustrations and fights and arguments over and over and over again around all areas had to do with the fact that we have different dominant personality types. And so I had learned to communicate with him like I wanted to be communicated to, which is not very effective. He had learned to communicate with me like he had learned to communicate, or what he wanted to be communicated with, which is not very effective for me. I don't like a ton of data. Don't overwhelm me with all that information. Let's just make a decision, go and deal with it. And so how this manifested in our relationship was, I was the snapper. Anytime the trash wasn't taken out after I asked my husband to do it, it was, why isn't this done? Do you not love me enough? Or if the shoes and socks weren't being picked up, or if the house was a mess and the dishes weren't done when I got home and I'd been traveling all week, it was, God, honey, is there any way that you could possibly participate in this marriage a little bit more? I had just made so many snap decisions and judgments. And so as a result of that exercise, I actually call the basic now our marriage saver, because we had gotten so many techniques and tools out of just that one exercise. Today, we have a much more effective marriage. So we've now been married 11 years. And those same concepts I applied with my clients. And so anytime I talk to my clients, I assess which personality quadrant do they actually sit in. And therefore, I'm going to communicate to them differently. I do that with the employees that I hire. What personality quadrant do they sit in? Analysts are really good for maybe hiring in very analytical positions. However, an analyst may not be so successful in a marketing position or an advertising position. And so I apply those techniques all the time in the communications processes all the time in all areas, both professionally and personally. And that's just one exercise out of 30. I learned some rest and relaxation techniques that allow me to feel rested just in 15 minutes like I rested for an hour. I also discovered that I was carrying some emotional backpacks around. For instance, I realized that the reason I never wanted to have children, and the reason I decided that, is because I didn't want to be my mom. I had no idea. I just decided, I don't ever want to have my own kids. And that's what I was going with. No clue as to how I got there. It didn't really matter, right? That's what I decided. That's what I decided my gut was telling me, and I didn't want to do that. However, through some of the exercises around emotional backpacks and looking at what backpacks are carrying around, I discovered that I was carrying around backpacks I had no idea were even on there. Some pretty significant ones around, my mom and my family situation that was then being applied to how I was making decisions in my life. All happening subconsciously, not even knowing it. So that's just two areas that you'll look at the basic seminar. On Saturday, you'll look at your mental wealth. And so how do you define what abundance looks like versus scarcity in your life? What stops us from being financially free? How do we know how much we're really worth? When I was asked on Saturday through a couple of different exercises, what my worth was, and I was looking at that, I had defined it based on what my paycheck was. And so that's the ceiling I created for myself. Through some of the exercises, I had realized that because my parents were entrepreneurs, they worked almost 20 hours a day, taking turns on night shifts and whatnot, in the hotel industry, that I just grew up thinking you always had to work all the time, so I was a consummate workaholic. I also grew up in an environment where my family did business with each other all the time, and so there was always an intermingling of money, and the phrase, the more money you have, the more problems you have, was ingrained in my head by my family. And so because of those thought processes, I had set ceilings. Now, was I successful? Sure. I had a great big house. I had nice cars. I live in South Orange County. However, I had created a ceiling for myself, not even knowing it. And finally, from a spirituality perspective, the Basic Seminar is not a religious course by any means. There's no talk about God or anything of that nature. However, if you are religious, you will likely come out with a stronger belief and faith in your religious faith. if you're not religious at all, you still will come out with some pretty important learnings. And I went in here pretty much not religious at all, in terms of I was actually more than beyond confused around spirituality. I had grown up as a Hindu and was sent to a Christian school for 6 years, and so the whole concept of God, I just decided I was going to avoid, because I was totally and completely confused, and that's fine. Now, I didn't come out of the basic seminar believing in God. I came out of the basic seminar just looking at what is my contribution to the community, and that's what spirituality really focuses on, is what is your contribution to your community? How do you define win-win? Do you apply that in both business and to your personal life? What does giver's gain really mean to you? This is an example of giver's gain, which is, taking the time to do this presentation without any monetary or specific benefit to me. So since I took the basic in 2006, I could really measure different results, more success, if you will, in terms of how I defined it. And more importantly, I'm in much better balance. So before the basic, I was a consummate workaholic, working 60, 70 hours a week. Did not have children. I was, certainly not spending time with my husband at that point. Did not work out. Did not, have any concept of any sort of spirituality whatsoever. 4 years later, after the basic, and actually even just a couple months to several years later, I started seeing different results in my life because of this one course. Because the basic is so experientially based, it's not like reading a book or going to a raw type of motivational seminar. You are actually learning your subconscious thought processes that then allow you to make better decisions. And so based on what I learned, I started making better decisions and thinking differently. So now, like I said, my husband and I communicate really effectively in our relationship. I now am the mother of a 3-year-old, and can you imagine through that process, especially adopting 2-year-olds who didn't speak the language, how effectively we needed to communicate with each other to do. I also now work only 20 to 25 hours a week, not 70, and I earn 2 to 3 times as much because I changed the entire decision-making process around net worth and my definition of abundance. All of that got redefined because I decided to. All of that got redefined because I discovered I had set all these ceilings, not even realizing them. And so that's why, I really believe in this work, because I've seen firsthand, and I'm a very practical person, the value that this course could potentially bring. Since I took the basic, I've referred over 60, probably 70-plus people to the basic seminar, and I've seen tremendous results out of all of those folks as well. So why focus on our thinking? So that's the fundamental purpose of the basic seminars, to really look at what are your thought processes, what are the limiting beliefs that you have that you don't even know you have that are affecting your decision-making and affecting your results every single day. Because the fact of the matter is that we make decisions on autopilot. We often decide it's our circumstance that stops us, when in reality it's actually our thinking that stops us from getting what we want. Scientific case studies have shown that 95% of what we do comes from our subconscious. 95% of the decisions we make comes from our subconscious. So, consciously you think, well, I know what I'm doing is going on the right track. I know what I'm doing feels right to me. That's all conscious thinking. Actually, 5% of what you're doing is actually coming from that part of your brain. Most of your decision-making and most of your certainty, believe it or not, is coming from your subconscious, which is not even something that you're aware of is happening. So let me give you an example of what I mean, or an example of being on autopilot, which is what we do every single day. I first, experienced autopilot, or at least got a concept of it when I learned to drive my husband's stick shift. I had never learned to drive a stick shift before. He was driving a Volkswagen Jetta when we were dating some 14 years ago. And he said, you know what, honey, at some point I may need you to drive my car. It's probably best that you learn. So we went to a parking lot, and, I probably stalled that car at least 50 times. I mean, I don't know about you. However, for me, the Volkswagen Jetta, the clutch was extremely sensitive. And so I was very, conscious and focused on what I was learning. I had one hand on the steering wheel, one hand on stick shift. I had a foot on the clutch, a foot on the gas, and I was very focused at what I was doing to make sure I learned this. However, 4 and 5 months later, we were living in the Bay Area at the time, I was going up and down hills in San Francisco without a problem. I was driving with my knee as I was drinking coffee with one hand and switching gears with the other hand. Like, all of that was no longer something I was focused on. It now got into my subconscious, and I was on autopilot driving that vehicle. And so we do that with our decisions. We actually make decisions on autopilot every single day. So at the basic, you get to learn about what autopilot decisions are affecting your life and the results you have. Because we do have everything we need to be enormously successful, yet much of what we do is unconscious. So think of a basic as having a pretend video camera for during that seminar, helping you see how you react, how you act, what decisions you make, what you're thinking during those exercises, and you're basically getting to play them back. Because when you experience them, you can go, oh my God, I didn't even know I was thinking that, yet I'm thinking that. And so then you have a choice as to whether that's working for you or not. And then you get to decide what you do with it. Nobody else. That's it. And so how do we develop this concept of autopilot? Well, again, I'm very practical in nature, so I had to go do a lot of research on this stuff. Most of our development happened for us at a very young age. Some of us with kids know that the first, years of a child's development are extremely important because that's where, the nurturing, the love comes in. So, at birth to about 4 years old, 50% of our development is already occurring. And so right now, and actually I think most hospitals started this several years ago, when babies are born, it's very important that they feel the mother's skin touching the baby to immediately start that nurturing and trust process. And so we all know that our development started from the moment we were born. Okay, so scientific studies by a famous psychologist named Erickson documented this, that from the ages of 0 to 4, 50% of our development is complete. So this is where we learn the concepts of trust and mistrust, self-esteem, autonomy, courage, shame, doubt, and guilt. Between the ages of 5 and 9, another 30% is complete, which is where we learn how to either be industrious or how to be inferior, how to be dependent or independent, how to be competent or how to have, and we continue to work on our self-esteem. So by the time we're 9 years old, 80% of our development and thinking, 80% of the thought processes we're now going to be using for decisions for the rest of our lives has been developed for us. So can you imagine at such a young age how much control we had over that? Probably very little, right? So between the ages of 0 and 9, the people we were closest to, our family, our friends, our schools, our neighbors, our environment, all of that plays a factor in developing how you're thinking and whether you're thinking from a limiting thought process or whether you're thinking from an abundant thought process and how that affects your decision every single day. And then finally, from the ages of 10 to 18, another 15% is complete, and this is where we're learning our identity, our morality, and our individuality. So 95% of what we decided happened and is happening on autopilot. Another 5% is left. However, the purpose of the basic seminar is to look at how did you develop that 95%? What thought processes are actually working for you in the areas of your physical well-being, your relationships, your emotional well-being, your financial well-being, and your spirituality? Is just drawing those thought processes out to decide whether they're working for you in all those areas so that you can actually achieve balance or whether they're not working for you. So ultimately, our thinking stops us. What we really want are things like financial freedom, amazing relationships. However, we settle for things like, I can't have enough. Or we settle for things in our life because we start making excuses around the economy is the reason why we don't have all the money we need or all the money that we want. Or that we settle for things in our life because we believe that it's a fantasy to have it all, or that we believe that a good marriage is being happy 50% of the time, and as long as you're happy 50 or 51% of the time, you're good. So we settle for things because that's our reality. We don't even know it's because of our thinking subconsciously. And so how many of us, go through a situation where, tomorrow we think it's going to be better. If I just go back to this horrible work environment tomorrow, hopefully it'll be a little bit better. Or if I go back to that, relationship and try a different approach tomorrow, hopefully it'll be a little bit better. Not even knowing that what we're participating in is Einstein's definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So why don't we just do something different? Why don't we just decide today to think differently and go out and get our amazing career, go out and get our amazing relationship, go out and lose all that weight, or go out and become stress-free and better balanced? Like, there's 100 million books out there that can teach you that, right? So why don't we just do it? Why don't we go from our current point A to the point B, which is where we really want to go? Because we are comfortable. Where I am now and where we are now is very comfortable. We like what we have. We make excuses for it. We decide, hey, that if I want to travel the world, I'll do it later. I can't possibly do it now. I eventually will get my dream car. However, I can't possibly do it now. I eventually will get my great relationship. However, I don't have time for that now. I'm focusing on my career, whatever the case may be. So getting to point B involves risk-taking. It involves taking risks around, hey, what if it costs too much to go get that dream car? What if I can't afford it? Or what if I, when I become a mom, am a bad mom? Like, that to me was a risk. What if more money right now means more problems, as I mentioned? We hold on to our current situation because of absolute fear, and we don't even know it. We believe that that's exactly what we want because we have it right now. When in reality, we could have everything we want, something so much greater and extraordinary. However, to get to extraordinary, you have to be willing to do something different. You have to take classes and get training, just like we do in our careers and our profession. To get better at something, we take classes and we get training. So as I mentioned, self-help is all around us. There's tons of books. I, in my MBA, read all of these books and then some, yet none of them stuck. Like Stephen Covey's, 7 Habits of Successful People, wherever that book was, he now came out with an 8th habit because 7 Habits sold so much, right? Or, The Habits of Highly Effective People, again, his book, Good to Great, The Principles of Applied Stupidity, which I thought was an interesting book. I read a book called Play to Win, which talks about or actually many of the concepts that the Basic Seminar talks about, the personal growth techniques, because the Basic didn't create these personal growth techniques. They've existed for 60, 70 years since personal growth has been around. PSI Seminars has just done a great job in packaging this in an experiential format so that the content actually sticks. So I read Play to Win probably 2 times before I went to the Basic Seminar. None of it actually stuck until after I went to the Basic and read it again. So I knew these concepts, yet I never applied them to create a different point B because I didn't even know what autopilot thought processes were affecting my day-to-day decisions. So who is the Basic for? Well, the Basic's for successful people. It doesn't matter how big or small the success is in your mind. It just depends on whether you're willing and wanting to be more successful. No one needs this class. It's not like you go to this class to get broken or get fixed, if you will. If you feel like you're broken, that's not what this class is about. It doesn't even talk about fixing. It's all a discovery about your thought processes, right? However, well, no one needs this. You'll be just fine without it. Everyone can absolutely benefit from it. Successful people are also the same people that actually know that to elevate their success, they need to look at their past results and how they got to where they got to, and whether that's going to help them get to where they want to go or whether they're going to have to do something different. In fact, I did some research, again, the practical person that I am, around Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and and Richard Branson, some of the most successful people, Oprah Winfrey, on how they determined what success was and how they suggest the techniques for how to create wealth. They actually came up with this list of the best-kept secrets of the wealthy that all of them subscribe to. When you read their blogs and you read articles about about the advice they give to help generate success. And the 3 most common themes across all of those successful people is that wealthy people invest money instead of spending it. So they invest in their companies, they invest in training, they invest in classes, they invest in their employees, they invest money instead of spending it. Wealthy people invest in themselves. which a lot of us, sometimes don't do unless we know it's specifically going to help us get a tangible result, like a professional certification of some sort maybe, right, or an MBA or whatever it is. And wealthy people invest in their relationships. So the people that invited you to listen to this presentation are investing in their relationships. So the basic seminar is for successful people. Successful people continue to develop themselves and continue to grow. And so I suggest that you really look at taking action now and attending the next basic seminar course. Either format is just $5.95 for all 3 days or all 4 days. And so you're talking about a very limited investment to really glean some amazing or get some amazing discoveries that you can then make intelligent decisions about in terms of how you're going to get your goals, right, or what it is that's stopping you from getting your goals. Some of the reasons why I actually recommend this course as the basis for, all of the people that I know, whether they're my business associates or my family and friends, is because there's a guarantee policy. If they don't like the course after they're done with it, they can simply ask for a refund, and minus a $50 processing fee, anybody will be able to get their money back. Now, out of the 60, 70 some odd people plus that I've recommended, no one has ever asked for that. However, I love the fact that there's that option. There's also a lifetime and unlimited re-audit policy. So after you've completed the class and you've become a graduate of the Basic Seminar, you can go back to any city, any time, wherever Basic is held, all over the country and in Canada, and you can walk in for any exercise or the whole duration of the course and re-audit. So my husband and I will go and re-audit the Basic at least once a year because, every year we continue to grow, and every year we're at a new point in our lives. Life continues to happen. And so even though we've done the course, we'll re-audit because depending on where we are in our life, the exercises now may mean something different to us. And so we'll go back and take advantage of that re-audit policy. So I highly recommend that you contact the person who invited you to this call. It is a very small investment in yourself to be able to discover what thoughts you have on autopilot that have been working for you and that have not been working for you. And it's a very small investment to be able to take that information and hopefully create a bigger, better life in all 4 areas of your life so that you can get even more balance. And so I want to thank you all for attending this presentation. Again, my name is Reshma Block, and I appreciate your attendance. Thank you very much.